Right now, the day's biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take. Rolling out hour number 2. Attorney Michael Avenatti joining us on the line. We're talking about, well, of course, the Mulvaney comments he made, the pro-Crow situation that took place on Friday and the fallout from that. Many other things to talk about, including Syria, the withdrawing of troops, the fact that many Republicans are now deserting Donald Trump in one way, shape, or another. I didn't think we would ever see the day that Lindsey Graham would come out and Lindsey Graham would say he's okay with a long impeachment inquiry. I cannot believe he said that this morning. That is shocking. And the phone lines are open. If you have a question, comment for Michael Avenatti, now is the time to give us a call. 257-5396. Again, that number if you want to be a part of the conversation, 702-257-5396. Okay, starting off this segment, why don't we start with Josh. Josh, thanks for calling in. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I had a question on the quid pro quo issue. And when Joe Biden, he's caught on tape saying if you don't fire the prosecutor, we're not giving you the money. Is that considered negotiation or a quid pro quo? Or like, Michael, you with Nike were negotiating and they called it extortion. So could you clear up the difference between those three things?
Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm not going to comment on the situation with Nike, as I've made clear in the past. I'm looking forward to that case going to trial next year, and I'm highly confident in the outcome. So that's number one. Number two, I don't really care what Joe Biden did at the time at this point, because guess what? Joe Biden's not president of the United States, period. And in any event, let's be clear about something. Joe Biden in the United States wanted the prosecutor fired, not because he was looking into Joe Biden's son, because he was not doing enough to ferret out corruption. Multiple individuals have confirmed this. It's beyond question, frankly. It was because this guy was corrupt himself and was not doing enough to get to the bottom of corruption. So that's number two. Number three, it doesn't matter, as I keep saying, whether there's a quid pro quo or not. There's no question Trump sought assistance from a foreign country to assist him in connection with a political campaign. That you cannot do.
Josh, you want to respond to that? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think what Michael said makes a lot of sense. I just thought, regardless of the reason Biden wanted the prosecutor fired, withholding $1 billion in loans just doesn't seem right to me. And then his son was on the board of this corrupt company, and now I guess he stepped down and all this stuff. And if what Hunter Biden was right, why did he have to quit?
Josh, can I ask you a question? If Joe Biden and his son Hunter were serial murderers, it still wouldn't change the fact of what Donald Trump did on that phone call. So what's your point? We're trying to talk about what Michael, and I don't want to put words in Michael's mouth, but basically what he's saying, we're saying it over and over again. It doesn't change the fact of what the president said in that transcript. Do you understand that?
No, he never said anything like what Biden said. He never said, if you don't do this, you're not getting the money. That's my point.
So you don't think that okay, let me ask you a question then. Donald Trump bringing up the Bidens and sending his personal attorneys over there, do you think that had anything at all or nothing at all to do with the fact that Biden is his political rival?
No, I don't think it had anything to do. I think it had to do with corruption and Hunter Biden.
You can't be serious,
But you
Josh.
believe that Joe Biden and Hunter Biden are corrupt, though? You do believe that, though, right? But you don't believe that Donald Trump could anyway be in that same boat. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, all right, Josh. Thank you. Thank you, Josh.
Come on, man.
I can't take it. You're killing me. Michael, isn't it amazing? By the way, the number to call, Michael Avenatti joining us on the line, 257-5396, 702-257-5396, the number to call. And Michael, isn't it incredible that there are people like Josh out there that seem to think that Donald Trump bringing up the Bidens in this conversation has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that Biden is one of his political rivals? Is it amazing that are people out there that stupid, naive, biased, or all three? I mean, what is it?
I have two words. the Bears.
Yes.
You remember the guys on Saturday Night Live that would do the whole skit about the Bears, and it wouldn't matter if the Bears were like 1-15 or what had happened, but they were huge Bears fans, and the Bears could do no wrong, and it would not matter. You remember those guys? And it was amazing. You remember that?
I do.
Bears 89, Lions 2.
Yeah. Ditka,
I love it.
Ditka and the Bears.
Yeah.
That's what this is.
Bulls up 365, Knicks 21.
But Michael, on a serious note, let's be honest here. Okay, there are a lot of people like Josh out there.
Yeah.
There are politicians that feel that way, the way that Josh feels. They actually will not admit that Donald Trump brought up the Bidens because of the fact that he is a political rival. It is incredible to me that people all of a sudden think that Donald Trump, all of a sudden he's out to get corruption out there in the world, but it just so happens to be one of his political rivals.
I just think that a lot of extremist Trump supporters just aren't capable of expressing their opinions intelligently.
All right, so
which makes it much worse. They may have a decent idea of what they're trying to say. They just can't get it out properly, and it sounds really, really stupid.
All right. Well, JD, do you think that there's any chance at all that Donald Trump brought up the Bidens because of the fact of who Joe Biden's running against him in 2020?
There's definitely a chance of that, yeah.
So why do you think there's so many Republicans out there that can't admit that?
I just explained to you why.
They just can't describe it.
They're just incapable of explaining why. Now, I'm not sure if it's 100% why, but you can't logically say that it's not a small percentage of why that happened.
Fair enough.
Well, so I have a somewhat different view, which is, look, they don't want to admit that because they know that is the first domino that would fall, and it only takes about 3 dominoes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, they don't want to admit that first centerpiece. They don't want to admit that you don't have to have a quid pro quo, and they don't want to admit that he brought it up for his own personal gain. Because once you admit those two things, it's over.
Mm-hmm.
So, Michael, don't you think it's textbook, though, that if you're a Trump supporter, they will buy it hook, line, and sinker if there's debunked conspiracy theories regarding Hillary Clinton or, Joe Biden or Hunter Biden. Yet when it comes to Donald Trump, he is holier than thou and could never be considered doing anything that's nefarious or wrong when it comes to Trump supporters.
Trump, 49 states, Biden 1.
Yes.
Yeah, well, no. Trump, 50 states, and Democrats, Guam.
Yes.
So, look, here's the bottom line, guys. There is a huge segment of the population, tens of millions of people, that they simply want Donald Trump to be the president of the United States, period. It doesn't really matter what he does. It doesn't matter what he says.
I would argue hundreds of millions of people.
As long as he remains president of the United States, as long as he remains pro-life, as long as he remains pro-Second Amendment, as long as he continues to engage in the rhetoric that he does, they're cool with it. They're fine with it.
Well,
it's really that simple.
It comes down to what they prioritize. They don't prioritize what he does or how his demeanor is or what his past looks like. They prioritize, what he says. They prioritize what he does and how it affects their pocketbooks.
Joining us on the line, Michael Avenatti. If you have a question or comment, give us a buzz, 257-5396, 702-257-5396. Let's go to Sharon. Sharon, you're on with Michael Avenatti. Go ahead.
What's up, Sharon?
Hi.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Good.
I have a question. Mr. Avenatti, if the Democratic leadership were a football team and you were their coach and it's halftime and you need to give them a motivational speech to tell them how to pull it together and win this thing for 2020, what would you tell them?
I like that. Good question.
I'd tell them to start acting like Republicans. That's what I'd tell them, especially as it relates to campaigns on the national level, that they're not going to win on 2020 by taking a laissez-faire or hands-off approach. They're going to have to take the fight to this guy morning, noon, and night, and they shouldn't take anything for granted, because I think that there's a significant likelihood that he could lose by 6.5 million votes and still win in the Electoral College and be reelected president of the United States. And I also would tell them that despite the fact that they would like to see a sea change in this election and nominate somebody that was incredibly progressive and very far to the left, that's not the answer. That, in fact, That's a fool's errand, in my view, and it will spell disaster for the Democrats. They need to nominate a moderate, somebody that can win in those key states, and that can really take the fight to this guy. But this is going to be a bruising election. This is going to be the most vicious, dirty, nasty, cage match election for the presidency of the United States in modern times. There's no question about that. This is not an election for the meek and the mild. You're not going to win this by going the high road. You're going to have to really get down in the dirt and the gutter with this guy and trade shots with him.
So Seth Moulton has been on our show a couple of times. He was a Democratic presidential candidate who absolutely got zero press whatsoever, despite the fact that he bought himself into Harvard. He was a war hero with a lot of military experience. You've got Tulsi Gabbard, who's also got a lot of military experience. Why do you and I think that Moulton 20 years ago would be really, really considered for this presidency. Why do you think that there's not been a premium put on war experience in this election, especially in modern days?
All right, let me just interject and say
Seth
Moulton
bought himself into Harvard?
did not buy him. Jared Kushner bought himself into Harvard. Seth Moulton earned.
I'm saying Seth Moulton got himself into Harvard.
Right, you said he bought himself
okay.
into Harvard. Okay, just wanted to correct you on that. That's all. A big distinction there. Jared Kushner did buy himself into Harvard. Go ahead. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, I was surprised. I have a lot of respect for Seth Moulton and, of course, his background and his service to the country, et cetera. I was really surprised that his election or his effort campaign did not get more attention. I think the timing was bad. I think he waited too long to get into the race. The race was already packed at that time. It's very difficult to build name ID when you have that many candidates and you get in late. And I think that really worked against him. I wouldn't write him off for the future, though, by any stretch of the imagination. But I think that's really the problem that he faced, was getting in late. I think as it relates to Tulsi Gabbard, I mean, her service has been overshadowed by a number of these other issues that have come up relating to her, and the background relating to her father, et cetera, certainly has worked against her and her role in connection with that position relating to gays and others. So I think that I don't think it's a question of their military service being overshadowed. I think it's a question of bad timing and Tulsi Gabbard having a number of other things that have overshadowed. But you look at somebody like Mayor Pete. I think his military service has certainly got a lot of play, as it should. I think that's an asset if he moves forward.
Joining us on the line, it's attorney Michael Avenatti. If you have a question or comment, the number to call, 257-5396, 702-257-5396. Let's go to Robert. Robert, you're next with Michael. Go ahead.
What's up, Robert?
How you doing? I was just curious if you considered running for president again.
Michael, go ahead.
Well, I was seriously considering it last year, and traveled around the country. There was a lot of enthusiasm, went to a lot of key states, and a number of things have happened since then. I'll never say never, but certainly it's not on the immediate horizon for me. I've got a number of other things I want to deal with and get beyond, and we'll see what happens. I mean, I'll say this. 20 years ago, I was involved in politics, and I got out of politics, and I never intended on coming back to politics. If you would have asked me 2 years ago whether I would be even conversing publicly about politics, I would tell you, at least on a platform, I would tell you were out of your mind, and I certainly would never be involved in politics. It's all about the matchup, and I think that I would have matched up very, very well against Donald Trump, incredibly well, probably better than 90%, 95% of the folks out there. Now, you change the candidate on the other side, and it's a different equation. And I think that's another thing that the Democrats don't understand. And I've preached about this. I'm going to continue to preach about it. It's not about nominating the person that's going to make the best president. I know that sounds crazy, but I firmly believe this. It's not about this election nominating the person that's going to make the best president. It's about nominating the person that matches up best against Donald Trump and who gives the Democrats the best shot at winning.
Michael, do you ever take a couple steps back and say to yourself, wow, my life has been pretty crazy the last couple of years? I mean, look, you're this prominent attorney that's won over $1 billion in cases. And, you've gone after powerful people in the past. And then, it just seemed like everything was a storm, for lack of a better word, with all the appearances you made and all the Twitter followers you have, the social media stuff, you're all over TV. And now you have personal issues that you have to deal with. And we hope that you're able to get through this stuff. But do you ever just take a couple steps back and say, wow, this is crazy. I never envisioned this ever happening.
Yeah, I do actually. And, there's certainly many, many millions of people in America that have faced far more adversity than I have faced in the last 18 months. There's no question about that. Here's what I'll say. It's been a hell of a roller coaster ride. I think there's very few people, and I can't think of anyone off the top of my head that's had a roller coaster ride and has experienced so much in a short period of time in the last 18, 24 months as I have. And I think, not to be too philosophical, but it really comes down to, for the longest time, people used to say to me, well, it's not about the destination in life, it's about the journey. And I used to think, well, that's just because you haven't been to great destinations yet.
Right.
But the more you live and the older you get, you really begin to think about that. And if, in fact, it's about the journey and not the destination, then I've had a hell of a life because I've had a hell of a journey, especially in the last couple of months.
So Michael, you've been practicing law out of California, basically in Los Angeles for quite some time, and you've been very, very anti-Donald Trump. Hollywood, as we know, is also very, very anti-Trump. Has Hollywood come out and celebrities and people in Tinseltown, have they come out and been very, very supportive of your views, or how has Hollywood reacted to you, especially with how much you've been on TV and you've done big interviews, et cetera? How much has Hollywood supported you, or have they not since this coming out and basically attacking Donald Trump?
Well, I've received an enormous amount of support, not just in L.A. or Hollywood, but really across the country, and certainly in some places more than others. That support, obviously has waned over the last 6 months or so as I've faced my own personal challenges. When you're riding in a limousine, there's a lot of people that want to ride with you, and all of a sudden when you have to ride the bus, there's far fewer people that want to ride the bus with you. But all in all, it's continued to be a very positive, positive experience for me, and I've been very fortunate that a lot of people continue to support my efforts.
All right, the number to call in 257-5396. Let's go to Anthony. Anthony, you're on with Michael Avenatti. Go.
Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Good morning, Anthony. What's on your mind?
Hey, I want to ask Michael that does he think it's strange that last week Secretary of State Hillary Clinton received a total and complete exoneration from that email fiasco? Total exoneration from a Trump State Department, and that no one is reporting that. She lost the election for that one reason, and no one is reporting it. Does he think it's strange, that no one is reporting on that?
It's a good question. Go ahead, Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a great question. I think it is an absolute outrage, and I'm incensed by it, frankly, because more and more this is what you're seeing, and I've had my own personal experience with this, although not nearly at that level. What you're seeing is that the media and the press, TV, newspapers, blogs, online outlets, they report the charges and the accusation and the arrest at the very top of the page. It's breaking news. It's the biggest story out there. And then when someone is exonerated, when they're cleared, when there's a finding like there was last week, it's hardly reported at all. And it's an outrage. It's an absolute outrage, because you're talking about people's lives that are potentially changed forever, destroyed. Their reputations are destroyed based on media reports. And then the media is completely irresponsible and basically doesn't bother to report the outcome. And I think it's disgusting, and it's a sad indictment on where we are in American society relating to what's being reported and what's not.
257-5396, joined by Michael Avenatti. Let's go to Al. Al, you're on with Michael.
Morning, guys. How are you?
Good.
Yeah, my question is, what is the status of all of your legal challenges today? That it just kind of goes to what you're just saying, that much isn't reported in the news, depending on where you get your news. But, there were all these issues regarding you and all these allegations, and it's not discussed very much anymore. Just wondering where things stand for you today.
Well, that's a complicated question, but let me say this: I'm facing charges in a few different jurisdictions. The first trial is going to be in January in New York in connection with these allegations relating to Nike. I'm highly confident in the outcome of that trial and the facts and the evidence once presented to a jury of 12 people who are going to pass judgment on my conduct. And here's what I'll say: anybody that thinks that I would not be facing what I'm facing, but for the fact that I had taken on the President of the United States and been very effective, if people don't think that, they're absolute fools. There's no question that I am facing what I am facing in a significant degree because I put myself out there. I went up against Donald Trump, and I did considerable damage, and I was effective. Otherwise, a lot of this wouldn't be happening.
Yeah. Michael, I always appreciate it when you take some time to join us. Look forward to another, I'm sure, interesting conversation next week. What will happen next? What will Donald Trump say next? What will Mulvaney say next? Obviously, you never know. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. Always do appreciate it, my man. We know you're busy.
All right. Enjoy the week. Dub
right.
Bears.
Thanks, Michael.
Bears, I love it.
Bears 749. Jets minus 30.
Thanks, Michael. Have a good one.
Thanks a lot, Michael.
There you go. It's attorney Michael Avenatti joining us on the line. Boy, a lot we got to there in that hour. But Chris, I want to get your thoughts just as a whole too when we come back on what transpired over the weekend with Donald Trump, and I want to get JD's thoughts on it as well. I want to go more into detail with both of you in regards to that. Also, guys, this is a crazy story. It's an incredible story, and I find it fascinating. We see all these mass shootings that happen everywhere. It took a coach at a high school to hug a guy with a shotgun, a kid with a shotgun, to stop a shooting. It is unbelievable. I want to get to that as well coming up next, and of course, we'll take your calls at 257-5396. Also, Taco Bell getting sued. You're not going to believe for what. No, it's not for diarrhea. We'll explain exactly what it's for when we come back. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to The Vegas Take on the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDAWN.